Have you ever had a huge, complex idea for something? Maybe an app, a new piece of software, or even just a better way to run a company, and wondered how you'd ever actually build it without it all falling apart? Well, today, we're going to pull back the curtain on that process. It's the structured magic that turns big ideas into real working systems. And you know what? It all starts not with code, but with a question. I mean, just think about a project like that for a second. A passport service. You've got millions of applicants, government administrators, police for background checks, banks for payments, all these different databases, and they all have to work together perfectly. If one little piece is wrong, the whole thing could just grind to a halt. So where do you even begin with that level of complexity? The answer, and this is so important, is that you don't just dive in and start building stuff. You wouldn't build a skyscraper without a detailed plan, right? The exact same rule applies here. You start with a blueprint, a model that maps out every little thing before a single line of code gets written or a single process is changed. So why is this blueprint so critical? Well, here's the biggest mistake people make. They think it's just about the technology, but it's not. Before you can even think about building the right system, you have to get a deep, deep understanding of the business it's supposed to help. This whole modeling process really has three main goals. First, you have to understand. You need to map out how the organization really works right now, the good, the bad, and the ugly. Once you have that clear picture, you can get everyone aligned. You make sure the developers, the managers, and even the end users are all on the same page, sharing the same vision. And only then, only when you have that shared understanding, can you effectively improve, pinpointing exactly where a new system is going to give you the biggest bang for your buck. All right, so the very first step in drawing up our blueprint is to map out the interactions. We've got to answer two really basic but super important questions. Who is involved with this business, and what are they trying to get done? And the way we do that is with something called a business use case model. Now, that might sound a little technical, but the idea behind it is actually really simple. Think of it as a map of all the essential things a business does, and it shows how people, or even other computer systems, interact with it to achieve some goal. And this diagram right here, even though it looks simple, is the absolute key. See that little stick figure? That's called an actor. It represents anyone on the outside of the process, like a customer or an employee. And those ovals, those are the use cases. They represent the specific goals those actors are trying to achieve, like submit an application or check an order status. The lines just show us exactly how they connect to the business. To make this even clearer, just think about these real-world examples. Deliver an electronic pay stub. That's a use case. The employee is the actor. Negotiate a contract. That's a use case, and the customer is the actor. And to bring it back to our big example, an applicant submitting a form, that's a core use case for our entire passport system. See how it works? Okay, so we've mapped the view from the outside looking in. We know who interacts with the business and what they want to do. Now, to get the complete picture, we need to flip it around. We've got to look inside the business and map out all the things that make these processes happen. And this is what we call the business object model. It's all about describing the key components or objects that make the business tick. We're talking about real things like paychecks and forms, but also more abstract things like departments or even other software systems. And the really crucial part is mapping out how they're all connected to each other. So this is how we visualize that internal world. Those figures in the circles, they represent the workers, the people inside the process, like a clerk or an administrator. The empty circles, those are the entities, the actual things they create or manage, like the invoice, the report, or the passport application itself. The lines here map out all those hidden connections that make the business actually function. Okay, so now we have our business blueprint. We understand the outside actors, their goals, and all the internal moving parts. Now comes the most important step of all, translating all that business knowledge into an actual plan for a software system. And this right here is the critical handoff. This is the moment. Everything we figured out in that top box, our business models, becomes the direct input for what goes in the bottom box, the system models. This is the bridge that connects the business world to the tech world. It's the step that guarantees that what we end up building is exactly what the business actually needs. No guesswork. So with our blueprint for the software in hand, we now step into the world of systems engineering. This is the discipline that takes that beautiful plan and turns it into a successful working reality. So what exactly is systems engineering? You can think of it as a structured process for not messing things up. It's all about staying laser focused on what the customer actually needs, writing everything down so there's no confusion, and then methodically designing, building, and testing to make sure the final product actually delivers on its promise. So, how does it handle that massive complexity we talked about with the Passport system? The answer is kind of beautiful in its simplicity. You take the big, scary problem and you break it down into smaller, much more manageable pieces. The official term for this is decomposition. When you first look at a huge project, it feels like this one giant, intimidating black box just labeled the system. It's so big and undefined that you have no idea where to even start. It's overwhelming. But then you start to decompose it. You break that one big system into smaller, self-contained subsystems, just like in this diagram on the right. Maybe one small team handles just the applicant data entry. Another team focuses only on payment processing. A third just manages the database communication. And all of a sudden, each piece can be built and tested on its own. You've turned an impossible problem into a series of possible ones. So, as we bring this all together, what does this whole structured, blueprint-driven approach actually give us? What's the real payoff for doing all this work up front? Well, the payoff is huge. First, you get total alignment. Every single person is working from the same script. Second, you make sure the project is relevant because the whole thing is tied directly to real customer needs. Third, you get clarity because you've tamed that overwhelming complexity by breaking it into solvable chunks. And finally, you get a reliable roadmap that takes you all the way from a fuzzy idea to a finished, working system that actually does what it's supposed to do. It's such a powerful way of thinking, and it applies to so much more than just software. It could be planning a big event, reorganizing a team at work, or even just tackling a big personal project. So I'll leave you with this question to think about. What complex system in your world could seriously use a better blueprint?